Hey everybody, Tekking here. So in this video, I'm going to discuss an ability in the One Piece series that isn't mentioned all that much. It's only brought up a few times in the story. Not a lot of people have been talking about it, but it was just referenced in the most recent chapter of One Piece, chapter 853. It was referenced by Big Mom. Now, this ability, so far from what we know of, is only used by, it was used by Gold D. Roger, King of the Pirates, and currently used by Monkey D. Luffy. And every time the ability doesn't have a specific name. It doesn't have like, you know, oh, it's called this specific thing. No, every time it's talked about, it's always mentioned in a very vague way, like the ability to hear all things, or the ability to hear all creation, or hear the voices of all creation, or all life. That's how it's always referred to as, like in quotations, as if this ability doesn't have an actual name, so its description is its name. Now, when I talked about it in the review, I mentioned it a little bit. I planned on making a video about it anyway, because Big Mom was discussing this to Brook. To give you the context, you know, Big Mom was discussing with Brook, you know, how Roger managed to steal the poneglyph, or at least the rubbing of the poneglyph from her way back when. And that's how he managed to get to Raftel first, and that's why Big Mom was so pissed off at Roger. But she mentioned that, you know, he used this ability to hear all things to steal it away from me. And I talked about it a little bit in the video. I discussed that it's weird because only Roger and Luffy were able to use this ability. It's not anything similar to a Devil Fruit ability that we're aware of. We don't know if Roger had a Devil Fruit, but we know that Luffy does, and it has nothing to do with his Gamu Gamu no Mi. I also discussed that it's probably not hockey related either, because no one that's ever had hockey, you know, observation hockey, armament hockey, even Conqueror's hockey, no one's ever exhibited this ability. You know, Rayleigh has Conqueror's hockey that's way more, you know, finely tuned than Luffy, and he doesn't apparently have this ability. So I discussed that it's kind of interesting that only Roger and Luffy have this. And some people in the comments were a little bit confused when I said this. I should have elaborated a little more, but some people were bringing up Momosuke. Because, like, well, what do you mean that only Luffy and Roger are able to use this ability? Remember back in during Zou, when Momosuke was able to communicate and hear Zunisha? So maybe he's part of this too. It's not just Luffy and Roger. Here's the thing, and this is what I really wanted to cement in. The difference is that Luffy and Roger can only hear the voices. They can't communicate. To put it another way, Zunisha could only communicate with Momo because Momo was the person that was intended to hear the voice of Zunisha. No one else can hear Zunisha. The Minks can't, nobody around can, even people that have observation hockey cannot hear that elephant's voice. The only person that was intended to hear that elephant's voice was a descendant of the Kozuki clan, which would have been Momo. I'm sure Momo's father, you know, Lord Oden, would have been able to hear it too, or any member of that bloodline. That's the kicker. It's only supposed to be part of that bloodline that are supposed to hear that voice and be able to communicate with it. Luffy was able to hear it too. That's what I'm getting across here. Hearing the voice of all creation. Hearing the voice of things that you're not supposed to be able to hear. And now, the difference here, the main difference, the way that you can tell, you know, why this is something different than what Momosuke had from Luffy and Roger, was that Luffy was not able to communicate with the elephant. He was not able to, you know, give it orders. The only person that was able to do that was Momo. So in this situation, Zunisha the elephant, you know, a long time ago in a past that we're unaware of, was given the orders to walk around the sea aimlessly. Maybe it is headed to a destination, we don't know, but was ordered to walk around aimlessly and only act when given an order by a specific bloodline or a specific group of people. Momo was part of that specific group of people. Nobody else should be able to hear it. Nobody else should be able to talk to it. And Luffy was able to hear it. Luffy was shouting, you know, who's speaking? What are you doing? And Zunisha was not listening. So Luffy even came out and said, Oda was kind of laying it on a little thick. He's like, all I can do is hear. I can't speak to you. Now, this has happened a few times in the story. It's actually only happened, well, actually only 3, including the moment with Zunisha. The first time it happened, or the first time it was mentioned, was by Rayleigh. Really, what it was on Skypiea. Remember, Robin found the poneglyph on Skypiea, and she was reading the poneglyph on Skypiea, and it talked about Poseidon and where Poseidon was located. It was located on Fishman Island. Poseidon actually being Shirahoshi. But yeah, she read the poneglyph, and she realized, you know, this wasn't the information on the Rio poneglyph that she wanted, so she's ready to walk away, and then one of the Skypians pointed out, like, hey, wait a second, there's an inscription also written in the same language as the poneglyph. So what's up with that? And so she turns and she reads it, and it was like an inscription by Goldie Roger. And the inscription read, you know, I will guide this passage to the end. Pirate Goldie Roger. And Robin was really surprised by this, not just because Goldie Roger was, you know, he came to Sky Island, but because Goldie Roger was able to decipher that writing, what she thought. Oh, Goldie Roger could read poneglyphs too, and then he wrote it on the side. That's not what happened. Later on, she brings this up to Rayleigh, and she's like, did Roger have the ability to read poneglyphs? And Rayleigh's like, no, we didn't. We're just a bunch of fucking pirates. We didn't have that kind of scholarly knowledge, the same as with O'Hara and you guys. You're archaeologists. You were studying this shit. We didn't have that kind of knowledge. And Rayleigh once again mentions it in a very vague way, as if the ability itself does not have a name. He was just able to hear the voice of all creation. So what this ability is that anything of intelligence in this world, you know, anything that's capable of speech or giving out, you know, is talking intelligently, even if nobody else can hear it, Luffy and Roger can understand it, even if they are not intended as the target. And the same way with poneglyphs. Now, the difference here is that perhaps Roger had this ability a little bit more finely tuned, or maybe he understood this ability a little bit better so that he could learn from it or something, because from what we understand, Roger looked at the poneglyph, understood the writing at least, and was able to write. Maybe Roger didn't really know what the glyphs actually meant. He was just like, I know what I want to say. I want to say that I will guide this passage to the end, and he just kind of like he just did it, and he just instinctively knew what glyphs to put there. He didn't actually know what he was writing down. The difference is Luffy, from what we can understand anyway, Luffy can't read poneglyphs, or he doesn't even have the vaguest idea of what they mean. I mean, we don't know this because, you know, Luffy's never actually planted himself in front of a poneglyph and like, I wonder what it means. You know, you had that issue with the road poneglyph and everything when he was there, but he was too kind of distracted by fucking Raizo's ninja shit and stuff. He wasn't actually trying to sit there and trying to understand the poneglyph. Maybe he could, I don't know. But the general idea is that, you know, so the next time it was mentioned, the only other time in the story it was mentioned was during Fishman Island, when you have the Sea Kings. Now, the Sea Kings, they live in the water, but they're not the same as regular fish. You know, honestly, most of the One Piece fandom probably thought that the Sea Kings is nothing more than just oversized sea monsters than nothing else. You know, they weren't anything super. I mean, they can be threatening in their own rights, which is why the Calm Belt is so threatening. But we've seen plenty of characters take out Sea Kings. In fact, they're kind of like used for fodder a lot of times. Like, you know, Luffy punched out Lord of the Coast, and Aokiji froze that Sea King. Like, whoa, you froze a whole Sea King? That's badass. So they're usually used as a measuring stick a lot of times. But nobody really gave a lot of thought to what they were. Turns out the Sea Kings are extremely intelligent, and they are able to communicate as well with each other. And you have the mermaids, which are able to communicate with regular fish, as we see with Kami. She's able to talk to fish. Even some fishmen, like Jinbei, can talk to fish. He talked to the whale sharks. But Sea Kings are apparently in a completely different class. You know, they're not supposed to... You know, I think mermaids and fishmen weren't even aware of their intelligence. They weren't even like, there's no way you can... You know, you can't talk to Sea Kings. There's something else altogether. So they probably didn't pay much mind to it. But then you realize what the purpose of the Sea Kings are. And it was revealed that Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Poseidon, and that she is the lone person able of not only to hear the Sea King's voice, but also to give them orders. And we see later on, near the end of the Fishman Island arc, when the Sea Kings are grabbing Noah and bringing it back to safety, you know, and that's the whole point of the chains on Noah, where it was supposed to be towed by Sea Kings. And they're talking to each other as if they're extremely intelligent. Like, oh, it's such a shame that Noah got damaged. Hopefully they'll be able to repair it before the promised day arrives and shit like that. You know, so they're clearly intelligent, probably more so than humans. And that's Shirahoshi's, that's what she is. She's able to communicate with them and talk to them. But that's only how it's supposed to work. You know, she's supposed to be the only person, the bearer of Poseidon, supposed to talk to the Sea Kings. But even so, when the Sea Kings were speaking with each other, Luffy was able to hear it, and so was Roger. When Roger came to Fishman Island, he was shouting out to the ocean, and he's just like, who's speaking out there? And all the Rayleigh and all the crew members are like, Captain, what the fuck? He's like, can't you hear it? Come on, you can hear it out there. So, yeah. So it's clearly not something related to devil fruits. We can pretty much just remove that immediately. I think hockey doesn't have anything to do with it either, because if it was related to hockey, I think, Rayleigh would have just called it was because of his hockey, but it has nothing to do with it. Even observation hockey. Observation hockey's whole deal is sensing enemies, knowing when attacks are coming, kind of like you focus your mind, and it's like you can maybe, like how Usopp uses his observation, like he can, snipe from a very far distance using it, having like pinpoint accuracy. That's the whole point of observation, increasing your senses of perception, and this is something that's all together different, not even close to the same thing. Conqueror's Hockey, once again, not a lot of people can use Conqueror's Hockey, and we've seen some characters that are really good at it. Luffy's pretty good at it, Doflamingo, and then Rayleigh's probably the master of it, but Rayleigh didn't have this ability. He could not hear the Sea King's voice, but Roger could. So this is something that's completely different. And I want to say, and double down, it's an extremely limited ability. If I'm sure maybe other people could have used it way back in the past, maybe other than Luffy and Roger, but not very many, because it doesn't even have a real name. That's why it's like such an exclusive thing. You could just, you can just, I don't know, if it had a name, you think somebody would have talked about it. Roger would have met somebody that knows about it, but no, they have no idea. So either maybe it's something that only a few people on the planet have, or maybe it's something that only like one person has at a time. It's passed down. Maybe genetically, I don't know, probably not, because Luffy and Roger are not related. Ace was related to Roger, but I don't think Ace had that ability. He didn't exhibit that ability. Maybe it's something like a third party has this ability, to give out to people, and that's the case. We don't know what it is, but it has to do with something, and it connects Luffy and Roger. That's the main thing that connects both of them, other than just the straw hat. Maybe it's just the straw hat. Maybe that's the thing. Whoever so wears this hollowed hat of straw may have the ability to perceive all creation. I don't know. If that's the case, maybe Shanks can do it too. Even if you want to say it's because of the will of D, that still doesn't make any sense. Law was on Zoe. Law's a D. He couldn't hear anything. So, yeah, it's something completely different than that. And it's something that I love in this series, because this is a true mystery to me. And I feel like more people should be discussing this, because there's been a lot of mysteries in One Piece, like the Will of D. I'm going to make a video about the Will of D and what I think about it and everything, but that's a mystery that's been going on for a long time. A lot of people have it. There's a lot of different clues in the story. We just got a major clue to the Will of D back in the Dressrosa arc. So we have a lot of stuff to go off of here. This gets me excited because there's so little we know about it, and Oda still brings it up every now and then. He just brought it up in the recent chapter, so this is clearly something that he's going somewhere with this. So here are my few questions about this, okay? Does this ability have a name? If it does have a name, then who named it, who used it first, or who named this ability? Number 2, why can Luffy and Roger use this ability? Is it something that connects the two of them together, or is it something altogether? Is it there's some third party behind the scenes that can give this power out to people? Maybe it has to do with your state of mind. Luffy and Roger are very similar in terms of their attitude. Maybe it's like a reincarnation deal. That might be going a little bit too spiritual with it, but perhaps that's the case. Even then, that has a little bit of a problem, because it's not like Luffy was born right after Roger died. There was a few years of a gap there. 3, is there some sort of grander purpose to this ability? Why you have this? Or is this just something that's just like a mutation, or a sense of the word, Like the Sea Kings. The Sea Kings were towing Noah away, and they were saying, that boy with the straw hat could hear our voices. And the other Sea Kings are like, nah, you must have just been imagining it. Although it is, and then they recollected back what happened with Roger. So even the people that shouldn't, they don't even understand what it is. Even the Sea Kings don't understand. You know, so this might just be an abnormality, something that just appears in a human every now and then, the ability to hear all creation, and there's no grander purpose behind it. It might just be a storytelling device that helps connect Luffy and Roger together. That might be all it is. It might not have a grander purpose. It might not have any meaning, because this ability has not been useful to Luffy at all, or Roger for that matter. I mean, I guess it's been a little bit useful for Roger because he was able to write in the poneglyphs, but to Luffy it's been completely useless. He hasn't been able to really do anything with it. You know, he was able to hear the Sea King's voice, but he couldn't command them. That was Shirahoshi. He couldn't really do anything about that. He could hear Zunishia's voice, but could not command it. You know, Jack was attacking it, and the elephant was like, please give me an order so I can fight back. And Luffy was trying to talk to it, tried to tell it something, but it couldn't hear it. He couldn't, I mean, the elephant could not hear Luffy. So the ability seems rather useless to Luffy. So perhaps that's all it is, just a storytelling device to link Roger and Luffy together, so that their journeys seem more, you know, parallel to one another, you know. But I hope it isn't that. I hope there's a point in the story where this is going to be relevant, and we're going to find out what this is, what it really means in the grand scheme of One Piece. And there's going to be a point in the story where Luffy's ability to hear these voices that he's not supposed to hear actually plays a role, you know, in something much bigger. But yeah, those are my 3 questions I have. What do you guys think? Not really a lot more stuff to go off of here. It's probably gonna, you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like there's stuff going on in the Void Century. You know, there's stuff that happened back then with Joy Boy, and with the Noah, and with the Sea Kings, and the ancient weapons are probably tied to this in some way. And then, of course, you have Zunisha. Zunishia's been walking for 1,000 years, I think, before the even... I don't know. They said Zunisha was 1,000 years old, but did they specify that it has been walking for 1,000 years? Because if it was born 1,000 years ago, and then the Void Century happened, and then it was given the orders. Anyway, this all ties back to the Void Century, and these families, like the Kozuki family, and the World Nobles, and the families that existed back then, and their bloodlines, and then the ancient weapons, which is also something of a thing that carries over from them. So you have this special network, you know, these things from the past that are connected by blood that Luffy and Roger were not part of at all, really, and yet they can still understand it. You know, I mean, you can't just say, oh, it's because of the will of D, because Luffy and Roger, yeah, sure, they both have the D, but they're the only ones that were able to do this. No other D holders were able to perceive this at all. But yeah, comment below what you guys think about how all this shit works. Thanks for watching once again. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Crazy hand movements. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, check this out. I got my own Jolly Roger. I knew it was just a matter of time until someone made me one, but it's fucking awesome. Hado Abyss was the person that drew it. He has a really cool DeviantArt. Check it out below. If you like boobs, you'll probably enjoy it. But there's some other cool stuff on there too. Okay, yeah. Later, guys. Signing out.